So today we're going to talk about factoring special products. Please make sure you set up your notes, factoring Unit 5A, Homework 5 with the appropriate date, and the side of your paper for questions or comments before continuing on. So one of our special products we've already talked about, and that's factoring the difference of two squares. And it's set up where if I see a squared minus b squared, it's simply a minus b times a plus b. So here's our first example. We have x squared minus 25. This is a perfect square, and 25 is a perfect square. So we want to write it as a squared minus b squared. The x is already squared, but we want to rewrite 25 as 5 squared. Now, once we do that, it's just the difference of two squares pattern, where one is going to be a minus and the other is going to be a plus. So we have our x minus 5 times our x plus 5. Now keep in mind, you still want to check this. So we're going to FOIL it out and then simplify our terms. And you're going to notice the minus 5x and plus 5x canceled out to give me just my a term and c term, which checks back to my original. Let's look at a second example. What happens when I have an a other than 1? Once again, I'm looking at perfect squares. 4 is a perfect square, x squared, and 1 is a perfect square. So I want to write it out. Everything is a square. So I'll have 2 squared is 4, x squared, and then 1 squared is 1. So I have 2x minus 1 times 2x plus 1. And that's our difference of two squares pattern. Keep in mind, you always want to check it to make sure you didn't make a minor mistake. We're going to FOIL, and then we combine our like terms. And once again, my negative 2x and positive 2x cancel out, so I have no middle term, just an a and a c. And it comes right back to my original. Go ahead and take a moment now, pause, copy before continuing on. Now, another example we've already seen has been the factoring of a perfect square trinomial. And this is where we have a squared and b squared, or perfect squares, with my b term being a times b. So here's my first example. Once again, 16 is a perfect square, x squared is a perfect square, and I want to rewrite it in the perfect square trinomial. So I'll have x squared, 16 is 4 squared, and then I'm going to take 2 times x times 4. And then all I have to do is do x plus 4 squared. You can also write it as x plus 4 times x plus 4 if you choose. And that's my perfect square trinomial pattern. Once again, you want to make sure you check it. And we'll go ahead and FOIL out. You're going to notice your two middle terms, same number. And yes, it's going to check back to my original equation. Here's another example where a is not 1. Once again, 4 is a perfect square, 9 is a perfect square. We'll have 2x squared. We have 3 squared. And then we have 2x times 3 in the parentheses. And that gives me 2x minus 3 squared. Once again, you can go ahead and write it as 2x minus 3 times 2x minus 3 if you so choose as well. And that sets up my perfect square trinomial pattern. Always check to make sure that the factors you got will multiply back to your original. Once I FOIL out, you're going to notice negative 6x, negative 6x. And it combines in for my original that I started with. So I'll try it out. I want you to factor the 4 following polynomials. The first 2 are difference of squares. Notice the missing middle term. And the other 2 are perfect square trinomials. Once again, knowing your squares helps you out on this sac set. If you had problems getting these answers as you try it out, please make sure you come in with questions or comments to our next class. See you then.